There we go. Okay. So we should see Paul join us here shortly, but in the meantime, I will call to order the regular Ravenna City Council meeting for Monday, January 4th, 2021 at 7:03 p.m. Chelsea, would you call the order? Oh.
Here.
Well, and actually,
I'm not
I jumped the gun too, so give me a second. So the first item on the agenda, I apologize, is a moment of meditation and silence. Mr. Calfee, do you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Be glad to. I pledge allegiance
pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the flag
of the
of
United States of
of
America
America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Now, Chelsea, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kelsey,
Still here.
Ms. West?
Here.
Mr. Moskin? Ms. Michael?
Here.
Mr. Karras?
Here.
Ms. Wood?
Here.
Mr. Harper?
Here.
Okay. And if we need to excuse Mr. Moskin, we can do so, but I'm texting him right now and he's having a little technical issues. So we will give him a minute to do so. But the next item on the agenda is the election of the President Pro Tem. So this is done by the council as a whole. Do we have any motions from council to make a nomination for Pro Tem?
Who served as the President Pro Tem on last year's council?
It was me.
Okay.
Amy.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Amy Michaels, President Pro Tem.
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations before moving on? Hearing none. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Karras?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Abstain.
Mr. Moskin? Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we're working on Paul real quick. He's trying to get in. The next item on the agenda, congratulations to Amy, by the way.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't think I've had to do it one time because you have always been there. So thank you for your commitment.
Yeah, you as well. I appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is the committee assignments. So you should have all received those earlier today. Were there any questions, comments regarding those? There were only 4 changes, which I can go through. Is this Paul? Paul, is that you?
I think that is him.
Well, while he's working on unmuting, Paul, I think it's number 3 on your dial. The changes, real quick, I'll just run through them. Switching Cheryl and Christina. So Christina, my proposed committee assignments, that she takes over IT, that Cheryl takes over community and economic development. Mr. Calfee will be appointed to the Parks as Parks Liaison with the council. And adding Mr. Moskin to IT as a member. So that would even out everyone as three, to be on 3 committees for each council person. And those were the changes. Everything else is staying the same for 2021. And do we need a vote on that?
No, we don't.
Okay. Well, if there's any questions, concerns, feel free to reach out to me after. But moving on, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the regular city council meeting, December 7th, 2020. Were there any additions, corrections, changes to those? I'm hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Communications, no communications, Chelsea. No delegations from the public. You all should have received the report of officials. Were there any questions or comments on those? We're hearing none. Do we have a motion to accept those report of officials?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving on to report of committees. Committees will be January 11th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Paul, are you able to unmute? Still
I had to do star 6.
6, okay. So Paul, if you can hear, try star number 6. Well, we'll come back if he unmutes, but moving on to information systems. Ms. West, is there anything, our new chair that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of right now.
Okay. Planning, Mr. Harris?
We have one item on the agenda tonight. I'm not aware of any issues to bring up next Monday. So I don't plan on having a meeting as of yet.
Okay, Committee of the Whole will be on January 19th at 7 p.m. Public Health and Safety, Ms. Michael.
I have a couple items on the agenda this evening, and we usually do have something. I do know I will be updating everyone. I have a meeting with our community outreach and some other members of the community to talk about homeless and the winter months and kind of getting a game plan. So I do want to bring that to committee afterwards, for discussion and to keep council updated.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next on the agenda for committees, streets and sidewalks, Mr. Harper.
Yes, I have 2 items for consideration this evening, and I have not heard of anything for committees next week, but I'm sure if there is, we'll get it scheduled.
And personnel, Mr. Calfee.
We don't have plans for a committee meeting this next week. I did want to mention, just in case somebody is looking at their calendar for the Committee of the Whole meeting, I think that's on a Tuesday coming up in a couple weeks.
Oh, thank you.
I think that Monday is Martin Luther King Day. So our meeting is a Tuesday this month.
Okay. Thank you. Community and Economic Development, Ms. Wood.
I believe there's one item on the agenda for this evening and committee to be determined.
Okay. And Mr. Harper, you have any updates that you'd like to provide on the cemetery?
Sure. We had our year-end meeting last week. We met for almost 2 hours. A lot of discussion about the budget. We put a few things into effect beginning January 1 of this year. At this time, we decided that there would be a pay freeze. No one would receive a raise at this time. We also included that the 4 full-time staff go from paying 0% of their premiums to 7% of their health insurance premiums. We raised their out-of-pocket expense for their insurance as well. The family plan, the people on the family plan now pay $2,500 out of pocket, and the individuals on the single plan will now pay $1,250 out of pocket. We did offer the 4 full-time staff a 3-month buyout. We gave them till the 15th to respond to us. So we'll see if anybody accepts that or not. We did not currently cut any positions, full-time or part-time, but the way the budget looks, that's still on the table, but no decisions have been made with that at this point. We are also currently doing a comparison of rates of plots and burials. We're considering a small increase there. That decision hasn't been made. We have an organizational meeting on the 8th, and we'll probably make a decision at that time once we can look at all the numbers. We did raise the cost of pouring foundations for gravestones. It was currently at a rate of $70 per square foot of concrete. We've raised that to $85 per square foot of concrete. And that's just kind of to stay in line with the current cost of concrete so that we're not losing money for that. That all being said, this year we're going to have about a $46,000 carryover beginning. We had a $46,000 carryover beginning this year. Without making any changes or cuts, we would have at the end of this year been at about a $2,400 carryover going into the next year. So that being said, with those cuts in place, we're looking at probably about $19,000 carryover next year. So the 22, we're still looking at more expenditures than revenues. So some more cuts will have to be made. We're waiting to see what happens with the buyouts. And then if nobody takes that, then we may look at cutting some of the part-time staff in the spring until we can get some things figured out. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
All right, well, thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
Paul, I think hopped off, still having issues, but yeah, we'll provide updates as they come in then to the rest of the council. Brian or Mr. Seaman, is there anything else you want to add?
I just will say, I know that there was some discussion of doing a flat fee increase on the insurance of $60 and $120 per month. The people with the family plan, their premiums are over $2,000. $120 of that would be a small percentage. We have people on the single plan where their premiums are $160, $170. They'd be paying $60. They'd be paying just under 50% of their premium. So we felt it would be more equal to just go at a flat rate for everybody. So I know there was some discussion about that. So that's just some clarification on why it went at 7%. Okay, I think that's it.
Thanks for your
It was
work
a
on
lot.
that.
It was a tough meeting,
Yeah, yeah. 2
no one
hours, you
wants
said?
to go in and do that, but it had to be done at this point, so.
Yeah, and I appreciate your work on it with Mr. Moskin and Mr. Gibson and Mr. Gabriel, along with Mr. Huff and Mayor Seaman, that we're working on it too. So, more to come. But if we could move on to first reading of ordinances. So first item on the agenda is ordinance number 2021-001.
An ordinance accepting a donation to the Ravenna Fire Department in the sum of $1,000 from the Swage Law Company, recording estimated revenues in the sum of $1,000 and appropriating the sum of $1,000 in the fire department and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael?
Yes, this is accepting a donation. They do this yearly, I believe, and there is no match. And thank you, Swagelok, for this very kind donation.
Any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings on this ordinance?
So moved. Second,
I'm sorry, who was first?
Rob.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. West? Mr. Moskin? Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes,
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved. Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin? Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
yes,
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin? Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
yes,
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2021-002.
An ordinance accepting a donation to the Ravenna Police Department in the sum of $1,000 from the Swage Law Company, recording estimated revenues in the sum of $1,000 and appropriating the sum of $1,000 and declaring an emergency.
This is almost identical. Public Health
Yeah.
and Safety, anything you'd like to add, Ms. Michael?
Nope. Just another thank you.
Any questions or? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
second,
Mr. Kelsey?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
yes,
Ms. West? Ms. West?
Yes. I don't know why my-
Mr. Moskin? Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Sorry, it looked like Paul was joining us. So do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
And Paul, just to jump in here real quick, you're on mute right now. I'm going to try and see if I can unmute you, but we are on ordinance number 2. These are the donations to the fire department and police department from Swagelok.
Okay, I remember those from the past, and I would say yes.
Mr. Harper?
yes,
West?
And a motion to pass the ordinance.
So move.
Move.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
yes,
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2021-003.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids according to law for the 2021 paving program to include asphalt, concrete streets, crack sealing, sidewalks, and striping pursuant to specifications now on file in the mayor's office and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Streets and Sidewalks. Mr. Harper.
Yes, it's our annual paving program, and I believe everybody's had a chance to look at the roads and the projects. And I don't know if there are any other questions or concerns.
We had a question from a resident about the work being done on it was Woodbend.
mhm,
So a little clarification, because I know it came up in a committee meeting a few months ago. Because if I understand it, the work to be done is to create a turnaround for snow plows and such. And it's certainly a need. I mean, I think if you look at that road, why there wasn't one when it was built is a question certainly to be answered. But I do feel for the city workers and those who have to manage plowing snow on that road and so forth. I guess my question though is, since it was brought up in a committee meeting and it seemed to be that there wasn't a desire to do it, at least we wanted a little more discussion because there were several other places in the city that had similar type situations, how it became part of this overall program. And I guess the question is it possible to pull it out of this program to have further discussions about it?
Absolutely. Yes. The original proposal that we put together was for a cul-de-sac. And listening to the committee and city council, we looked at it a little differently because we have land and we can simply build a turnaround, basically extending the road a little bit farther and then extending a turnaround in essence on our right of way. So there is no land being purchased. There will be no curbs. The proposal is no curbs, no land necessary to be purchased, and no underground catch basins or anything like that. That would still serve the need of our snowplow drivers to push snow and then also turn around. As it is now, they have to back up or they have to use somebody's driveway, which is not appropriate.
Bob,
I
we
read
have-
those emails and go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I thought you had stopped for a second. I wanted to ask, now in the future, will we start doing other dead end streets like that? Or if somebody does call and, there's some other streets that people are, getting their driveway turned around by city workers, is this something we're prepared to do for other residents?
Yeah, if city council approves, I challenge city council to find two intersecting streets such as Bryn Mawr that we can do this on without buying right of way.
Is Linden Street?
I'm
would
not
that be
aware
cool?
of streets. No,
What about
Linden
no,
Street
okay.
is Linden Street's a straight through road. We would have no way to build a turnaround.
Well, I think what
But
Amy.
again, we can further discuss it.
Yeah.
We're not going to bid the program out probably until next month anyway. But I do want to bid it out next month, start the bidding process next month with the intent of having a contract signed in April. So
With that being
if you want to
said-
kick it to committee, or we can discuss it next week.
with that being said, though, I think we should move forward with the entire paving project. If the only issue is Woodbend at this moment, can we table Woodbend in the paving plan? Those two items that you had listed in that table, Mr. Finney, and then we could table those for discussion during the committee meetings and move forward with the rest of the paving plan. So my point, can we amend the current ordinance?
And I would like to make a
Sure,
comment
absolutely.
to that, not just city plow vehicles, but any type of delivery and or construction vehicles of some length in that area, so they don't have to use driveways, the same as any type of vehicles from the street department.
So with that being said, I'll take up. Go ahead.
Paul, I don't understand what you're saying, but we'll discuss it next week.
Okay, that's fine.
Andrew, should we ask other council members if they want it tabled, or was just Rob and I that were questioning that?
I'll open it up, but my question to all of council, are we okay with moving forward with the paving program as submitted, save for those two items concerning Woodbend, to table those two items until committee meetings? That's my question.
Yeah, I would be okay with moving the whole proposal forward. I think we have property there. It's not going to be a problem impeding on other people's property, buying property. It's in the budget. It's going to have to happen at some point. We can push it till next week to committee and talk about it. But I believe it's a project that needs to be done. We have the funds to do it. And we have the space to do it. That may not be the case everywhere in the city. But if everybody wants to talk about it more, I'd be happy to put it back in committee.
Any thoughts from Mrs. West or Wood or Mr. Calfee?
I'm okay with pushing it through as proposed. It is not the cul-de-sac that we originally had concern with. It is land that we own. We're not doing curbs, sidewalks, any types of utilities. It is simply easier for our street department, service department, and safety departments to have a turnaround. As someone who lives in one of these particular areas in the city that does not have a way to fix or change the construction of things, I understand the residents' concerns with people turning around and strange vehicles now and then, but at the same time, I purchased my lot where it is and the location. It comes with the territory. You purchase property on a main street and you get a lot of traffic or noise. It's just one of those things that I think for the safety reasons and for our street department's ease, I know we're like one of the last ones to get plowed just because it is a long street to back up, after they come down. So I think we should go through with the turnaround as proposed.
One issue that was brought up, and again, these are side discussions from residents, was characterized as poor planning. I think Woodbend was originally meant to go all the way through to Main Street. Residents didn't like that idea, and I think it is similar to what Amy was talking about with Linden. Residents kind of, from what I've been told, pressured the city to comply with that. So at the time, the better planning would have been to have the developer include a cul-de-sac or turnaround or something. I just think sometimes when we're stuck, and I agree, I mean, I'm very sympathetic to the snowplow drivers, and I do think eventually it is something we need to do for that sake. I just worry that poor planning in the past results in the city expending money for things that should have been taken care of years ago. And so I think sometimes that just requires a little more deliberation, but whatever the will of the committee or the council tonight is fine with me. But I would actually like to amend the ordinance to put off that one project, just to have a little more discussion about it.
Mr. Calfee, were you going to say something?
I don't mind discussing it. That's only a week away. However, my thought at this time is it's some asphalt spread out in about a 60-foot radius or something at the end of a street on something on property that we own. I'm for going ahead with it, but taking the time to discuss it would be okay also.
Any other thoughts regarding this ordinance? Well, it sounds like there's a majority of members who would like to see this move forward as submitted. Is there any final comments, or is there?
No, I'm okay with that. I do agree with Rob, but like you said, there is a majority, and at this point, I think, we need to just move forward with it. And, this is something that in future, maybe have more discussion on before something like this comes and goes, through council. But I don't want to hold any of the projects up. And, I can honestly see both sides of it. I was just a little taken back when, we received it, since we did talk at length about this in council. So it, just kind of was, I don't know. I was concerned that it would set a precedence, and, we'd have other areas that would want something similar to this.
All right, well, I appreciate the comments. With that being said, do we have a motion, or would anybody like to submit a motion to waive this 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
yes,
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
No, not that it makes a difference.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So
So moved.
moved. Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. West,
yes,
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
No.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. West,
yes,
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
No.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. Moving on to ordinance number 2021-004.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids according to law for the paving of South Diamond Street and Mill Road and declaring an emergency.
And this is also sponsored by Streets and Sidewalks. Mr. Harper?
Yeah, this is another project that's been discussed at length, and it will be a tremendous improvement for our city to have those 2 areas worked on.
Any questions or comments regarding this? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
second, Se-
sorry. Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2021-005.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 2-year agreement with the University of Akron Research Foundation for consulting services and expertise regarding the operations and projects in the water plant and the wastewater treatment plant and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Utilities. Mr. Moskin?
Yes. Uh, Like she had mentioned, it's a 2-year agreement and 25,000 each per year, with it split 12-5 between the two departments as needed for consultations depending on the various projects that might come up. And in the past, it used to be a 1-year agreement, and it was moved with negotiations between the service director and the university recently.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael, Ms. Michael,
Ah, yes, sorry.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. Moving on to ordinance number 2021-006.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept a $1,000 soccer grant from Target and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Planning. Mr. Karas?
Yeah, this was announced at our last month's meeting that we had received this grant earlier, or last year. We applied for the grant from Target. We applied for another grant for the soccer program. I'm not sure what happened with that one, but this one we were awarded for $1,000.
Any questions or comments regarding this? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
yes,
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
yes,
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. Moving on to ordinance number 2021-007.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to sign the conditional real estate sale and purchase agreement for 450 Lake Avenue, authorized by Portage County Land Reutilization Corporation, and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by
Andrew,
Community.
can I stop real quick? The address is 470,
Uh-oh.
not 450 as the ordinance is written.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's important to fix there.
I'll make a motion to change the address from 450 Lake Avenue to 470 Lake Avenue.
And
second,
on your,
We already own 450.
Oh, that would make
and
it
on your longer ordinance sheet, it does say 470 under the whereas, but in the title, it does say 450. But with that being said, Mr. Finney, I could either throw it to you or Ms. Wood, or maybe next month, but this month, maybe Ms. West, at least.
Mr. Finney, do you have anything to add on this one? It's something we've discussed for a while.
Yeah, I summarized it in my email that that we're working with the Portage County Land Bank to take ownership of it. We've already demolished it. This was all part of the budget when I came to council for the $20,000 to clean up 450 Lake Avenue, and then also eventually demolish 470 and then take ownership of it. It is, at least in the current time, it's unusable land because this land is not served by sanitary sewer. And there's a wetland on it also. So it just needs to go back to be natural.
And I'm definitely for that.
Any other comments or questions regarding this ordinance? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
There's a motion on the floor to amend the title.
Oh.
I don't know if there was a second or not.
yeah, I'll
But we're going to
second,
pass this ordinance with the wrong address.
We have a second to, Paul, did you second the, to amend the ordinance to 470 Lake Avenue?
Yes, I'll
Yes.
second that.
Just a voice vote.
Let's do it.
All you need.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So move.
Second.
second,
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
yes,
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
yes,
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And finally, do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas.
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2021-008.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Charles Harris and Associates to perform gap conversion services for the fiscal years 2021, 2022, and 2023, and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by the Finance Director, Mr. Huff.
Yes, thank you. We did discuss this one in committee. This was brought on because Local Government Services, a branch of the Auditor State's Office, who has done this service for a number of years, just did not have enough staffing to continue the service with us this year. So I went out and solicited bids from 3 different firms that I had worked with previously, one being our current auditors and 2 other firms that I've worked with. And Charles Harris and Associates by far was the lowest bid. So there wasn't really any doubt in my mind they're well qualified to do the service. So I'm recommending us going forward with their bid.
Any questions for Mr. Huff? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moxon,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Moxon,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So
So,
moved.
second.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Moxon,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2021-009.
An ordinance supporting the Portage County grant application from the State of Ohio Community Development Program Critical Infrastructure Grant for the Pratt Street Improvements Project, committing the sum of $15,000 from the City of Ravenna Water Fund, $35,000 from the City of Ravenna Storm Fund, $35,000 from the City of Ravenna Road Paving Fund, and $15,000 from the General Fund, and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Streets and Sidewalks, Mr. Harper.
Matt, you're probably not familiar with this. This was kind of a 23rd hour project. I had talked to regional planning and they said if I could get an application into them the following Tuesday that we could meet the deadline. So we threw it together, and with conversation with Brian, we decided to bring it to council just to verify that you agree with the project. This project, in essence, is identical to what we did on Vine Street, except it's on Pratt Street. The dollar figures, everything's pretty much the same. The width of the street, the length of the street. The improvements will be very similar also.
Yeah, anytime we can improve our infrastructure, I think it's definitely something we want to consider. So definitely.
There is a hydrant mid-block that's out of service. Pratt Street has a 4-inch water line. We would install an 8-inch water line, add a couple extra hydrants, and of course, curb paving, aprons, again, just like we did on Vine Street.
What's
So it'd
the
be a really nice
timeframe?
project. I haven't if awarded, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe if awarded, I'll get an answer for you. It really threw me, it threw me off. I was thinking the applications were going to be due in February or March, and they weren't. They were due in the end of December. The final application is due next week, but our pre-app was due again in mid-December. In the past, they seem to be due in the spring and then awarded in September. So I'm not 100% sure. I haven't got that far yet. Like I said, it was just kind of try to put this together pretty quick and throw it out there. Hopefully we'll be awarded.
So,
I mean, we've been
I'm looking at
successful with
this
them
right,
before,
this-
so I'm confident.
The city's portion of this project would be 105,000. Is that what I?
100,000.
Correct. The way we've written the grant, it's roughly $400,000. 300 would come from the grant. The administration that gets paid to regional planning is also part of that grant. And then we would be responsible to cover our portion of the 100,000 that we put in the grant. So in essence, we're asking for a 75 grant, 25 share.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Any questions for Mr. Finney? Well, hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. That is everything on first reading of ordinances. We have nothing on second or third reading of ordinances. Is there any old or new business to come before council this evening?
Under new business, I did have a question about whether we have begun to discuss or have some idea in mind on when we might return to in-person city council meetings.
Yeah, and I think that was something that I was starting to think about, but as vaccines start rolling out, I think a conversation with Bob Walker, the mayor, on when some of the meetings within City Hall might start taking place, then we can come up with a timeline on when that is, hopefully sooner rather than later, but not too soon. Okay. Well, then moving on to our first council remarks. I just wanted to quickly thank you all for adding this to the agenda, and then also just take a minute because we're moving forward to 2021, but just take a quick moment before we move forward to look back quickly. So it was definitely a year for us to remember, but very quickly during our first year as new city council, I do want to give a shout out and a thank you to Chelsea for her hard work this year. Put up with a lot with all the technical stuff, and it's been a weird year for us all. But then also all of you as members of council who have been extremely helpful as we hired Chelsea, our clerk of council. We appointed a new council person. We're navigating these meetings by Zoom, among other things that are going on. And as Mr. Calfee just said, I'm hoping that we can get back to in-person meetings soon, but not too soon. So again, all of these things have been accomplished by working together. And one of the top priorities for me is a constant communication with all of you as we work through this. And I think it's more important, especially as we're not seeing each other in person, to keep that going. Quickly, I know the mayor's in the other room, but quick thank you to the mayor for keeping his door open whenever we need to have a conversation, figuratively and in reality. Chief Wallace is with us here, so thank you to the police, fire, the city departments for continuing their hard work behind the scenes this entire year of 2020 during the pandemic. So it was a year of adjustments for us, but our focus has, and I think will continue to be, to provide a community where people want to live and businesses want to invest. So I just want to say thank you. It's an honor working to continue to work with all of you and our residents as we continue to plan for our city's future. So just a quick thank you as kind of the beginning of the year, end of the year, beginning of the year from me very quickly. So, but I will go, we don't, usually we'd go around the table, I think, but with this, I'm going to go around the screen if I could. If anybody wants to speak, Amy, I will throw it to you first if you want to make any remarks from council.
Same thing. I really want to say how well everybody has been committed, and all of our new council members have, put forth 110% to understand that first year as being a new council person, it's a tough year, and it's extra tough not to do it, in person. So each and every one of you have made an effort to, understand, question, and, stay in communication with all of us. And I think, the city is very blessed to have each and every one of you aboard with us, and also with you, Andrew. I don't believe you've missed one meeting as a council president, and that to me really speaks volume on leadership and commitment. So, and I also want to thank our, our service departments and our, police and fire, and Kay and Brian. Your staff, I know, has, had a lot going forward with a lot of the changes. And we really have a great team in our city. The water department now, they're, going to be having some changes with the new water meter. So everything that we seem to go through. Oh, and Bob Finney as well. I can't forget you. And Kay. All of you guys have been a really strong force this year with all the changes in our city. And, Mayor Seaman, it's a great thing. You can just get a hold of him and he's there, So Ravenna, I don't really believe that they realize how lucky they are with this type of an administration. So, one person behind the scenes who a lot of people don't know is doing so much too is Tim Content. So I do want to give a huge shout out to him for all of his commitment and hard work in dealing with this COVID, and working with departments and other departments in the county to, help the city, in the front line of things. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
Amy. I'm going to move down our council roster here. I have Ms. West. Is there anything you'd like to say this evening?
Looking forward to the next year and watching Ravenna grow. This has been a really exciting experience for me.
Thanks. Moving down, Ms. Wood, is there anything you'd like to talk about this evening?
First, I'd like to reiterate all the wonderful thank yous to Mr. Seaman, all of our department heads, and all of our individuals out there in the cold, the rain, and working on everything to make sure to keep Ravenna a great place to not only live, but work, play. And with that being said, I can't wait to see what Ravenna has to come for 2021.
Thanks. Mr. Moskin?
Now, there's been several things that have already been mentioned, so I can agree with everything that's been mentioned. I just don't want to repeat things. I'll just agree with everything and look forward to progress later this year and hopefully a tremendous amount more growth. So those are my comments for tonight.
Thanks, Paul. Moving on, Mr. Karas.
I just like to remark that I think it's nothing short of a miracle that we were able to hold these meetings so efficiently throughout the year. Having everyone adapt to the technology is certainly a big challenge, and thank you, our council president, for piecing together all the technologies and doing multitasking through these meetings and so forth. My only real remarks going forward are hoping to see more activity to plan for beyond the pandemic. For example, I believe Main Street Ravenna is about to launch its planning for Art on Main, which I believe is scheduled for June 19th. So, I mean, there's already some planning. I mean, you never know what's going to happen next, but we always want to keep our focus on the light at the end of the tunnel and all the good things that we can look forward to as we get to meet in person and we put back in place all those great initiatives that the city started just a few short years ago.
Thanks, Rob. Mr. Harper, would you like to add this evening?
Yeah, I just would like to add all the thank yous as well to everyone. Everyone's worked hard, from our service departments to our emergency staff, and in this trying year. And I think if we all continue working that way this year, we'll continue to move our wonderful city forward. So thank you, everyone.
And Mr. Calfee?
I don't have any additional comments, but I did want to say that I think it's a good idea that we've added this spot to the meeting agenda for both council president comments and comments from council members. I think it's going to be a good mechanism to share with the community what we're thinking, give any particular emphasis to issues that we have out there in front of us right now, and to communicate. So it's a good addition to our program and meeting agenda, and I thank you for putting that in place.
All right. Mayor, do you have any remarks this evening? Any
Yes.
update?
I have a few. Thank everyone for the kind comments. Looking back to January of last year, it seems like 3 years ago, the way we had to work this year. I think that we may be challenged. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this, but we have the State of the City address that we need to do probably mid-February, around that time. Wait for the dust to settle, and we're closed up the year and working on it with the things that have happened, and we like to cover all things, and I'll be asking for input from department heads and council people for things that they'd like to see. And quite honestly, we may want to take a look at how we do the State of the City in the future, where it does include participation from council with that. The things to keep in mind, the pandemic does dominate still every day that we're here in discussion and things that we need to look for. I met with Julie from Main Street last Friday, and she went through her whole schedule of what Main Street is putting together for the year. And it's a very robust schedule. It goes beyond the wine festival or the art festival. But we believe the art festival can be held and can function observing the distance requirements and the mask and those sorts of things. But we think that that can be done if we plan carefully and how we put it together. But both the chamber and the Main Street group are planning full activities for the future. Now, whether they'll be indoors where we can really get together and have some conversation and some good times as we get to return to fundraisers and those sorts of things. A lot of folks looking forward to that, believe it or not. And but one of the things that I want you to keep in mind, especially with our Ravenna business people, there was a fair amount of support through the holidays for these businesses, but we're hitting that time of year when people don't think about those things as much. And please keep them in your thoughts. And when you have the chance to patronize the stores in downtown or on the far east of town, please try and keep the money here locally and support the people that work here and invest their money. I want to congratulate Dennis West. He had a marvelous article in the newspaper about his efforts, not just to get the building, the Oak Rubber building. Hopefully they started working on that today, with tearing that down. But we don't want to forget there was a lot of effort that went into getting the Menards to take the project here. And that involved a lot of people. Dennis did a good job of kind of keeping that moving and keeping everybody informed with that. We are still doing a rotation with our workers, a rotation schedule. And I want to caution you, as we talk about opening up, they're beginning to do testing, and I saw this tonight, on this new virus that's much more easily caught than its predecessor or the other one that's floating around here right now. So we cannot let our guard down now. We've been fairly successful in combating this within the city. We have had people that have had to quarantine, and we've had some that have had the virus. But we've had communities around us that have had much higher incidence than we have here in Ravenna. But we have to continue to be careful. I want to thank Council and Andrew also for the work that you guys put in this year to make things work. I don't have a problem, and I don't want Mr. Karras to get discouraged because he always raises issues that we need to look at. And we will follow up on looking around town to see where we have these other dead ends and what can be done about those. In fact, possibly what we need to look at some point in time in the paving schedule is a section of it dedicated to correcting those. But first we need to define how big the problem is. But your points are well made, that we need to be fair, and this isn't a case of wanting to cater to anybody. It was a case that we owned the land out there, and it was a matter of putting just enough space in that they could whip the truck or the car around and without going on to other people's driveways. I know in the past, I've had friends that live down in that area. And if I end up down there and have to turn around, I try to choose one of their driveways. You know, Frank Seminos is always available here. Frank's in the room with me and taking in the meeting here. I'm going to stop with that at this point in time. But there is a good chance that the county health department may call us on us in a number of ways to help volunteer to get these shots out. I talked with them on Saturday, and one of the problems I see with getting a large numbers of people done is that the shot takes 5 seconds. That part's easy, but they have to keep you for 15 minutes and observe you before you can leave. Well, now you're going to start having things backing up when you have to keep the social distance, and you've got to store people for 15 minutes. And if they have known allergies, you have to watch them for half an hour. So I'm not sure what they may call on us to do, but I told them that the people in Ravenna would be willing to help. So I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will adjourn until Monday, February 1st. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.